My name is Nirma Perera, and I'm a neuroscientist who's been working in the field of brain diseases for the past 10 years. Research into the human brain has always held a fascination for me, especially in the case of brain diseases. They have a huge impact on not only the people who are affected by these diseases, but they have an impact also on their family members, carers, and wider community. I'm a neuroscientist who works on basic medical research. This means that I conduct my work at the laboratory bench involving cell and animal models. This is as opposed to clinical research scientists who works with patient participation. I work on motor neuron disease, or MND. This is a very devastating, cruel, and paralyzing disease. It currently has no effective treatments or a cure. This means that once diagnosed, MND can lead to death in about 2.5 years. So our lab at the Florey Institute of Neuroscience and Mental Health is primarily involved in finding an effective treatment for motor neuron disease. Motor neuron disease, as the name suggests, affects the motor neurons located in the spinal cord and in the motor cortex of the brain. And one of the pathological signatures that we see in motor neuron disease is there's accumulation of these damaged protein clumps, which we call protein inclusions or aggregates in these neurons. My work involves using a pathway that is already present in all of our cells called the autophagy protein clearance pathway, and harnessing the effects of this pathway as a treatment strategy. Autophagy, the name itself, is a Greek word that means self-eating. So it is a housekeeping pathway that's present in all of our cells that actually finds the damaged proteins and dysfunctional machinery inside the cells and then cleans them up. So my work involves harnessing the autophagy pathway activation as a potential therapeutic strategy to rescue these motor neurons, these accumulated protein inclusions or clumps within motor neurons as a therapeutic strategy in MND. In the lab, we model motor neuron disease using cells grown in Petri dishes and also as genetically modified mice. My work involves the use of these models to investigate disease mechanisms in motor neuron disease. For example, the autophagy protein clearance pathway abnormalities that causes the motor neuron disease, and how we can modify these disease mechanisms or pathways as a potential target as a treatment strategy for motor neuron disease. It's extremely important to understand disease mechanisms that cause brain diseases. For example, not everyone in the population is affected or get the motor neuron disease, Alzheimer's disease, or even dementia. In the case of motor neuron disease, there's of course a very small percentage of genetic cases where 10% of MND patients get the disease passed down or are inherited from their families. But for the majority of the MND cases, about 90%, we do not know why these patients are affected with motor neuron disease. Therefore, understanding disease mechanisms is really important. For one thing, we'll be able to identify the people who are at risk of developing the disease so we can manage the disease better. And secondly, we will have a specific pathway that we can directly target with our treatment strategies, so it will be able to fast track a treatment. So major proportion of my time is spent on understanding disease mechanisms that makes the motor neurons especially vulnerable to death and degeneration in motor neuron disease. Science is extremely valuable in healthcare, especially for these brain diseases such as motor neuron disease, Alzheimer's disease, or dementia, which currently don't have any effective treatments or a cure available. If you look in the market, the drugs that are currently available only have a very modest effect on the lifespan and quality of life of patients. In this regard, scientific research is the only option to find an effective treatment for these cruel brain diseases, but it is also the only hope for the patients who are living with these conditions. I live in a very leafy suburb in eastern Melbourne. So one of the things that I do to sort of de-stress is go for a walk or a small jog in my neighborhood, in one of the very leafy parks surrounding my home. This was especially important during these lockdowns that keep happening in Melbourne, as a way to relax and sort of ground myself.